Welcome back to Footballology. So, in years past, I've always handed out draft grades just like everyone else does, but I think that's unfair to certain teams. I think that we need to start grading a team's overall offseason and see if the team actually improved itself for the upcoming season. So, first up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. When you guys take a look at their 2020 roster, you look at guards like Gardner Minshew, who was alleged hurt towards the middle or late part of the season, and he just didn't play well. I think he was playing hurt the whole entire season, if I remember correctly. Someone said, I'm not sure. I didn't really do research on it. James Robinson, as a rookie, really popped off for them, gave them something to look forward to in the upcoming season. And then you look at guys like DJ Chark, and I would say LaVisca Chenault as well. Those two guys definitely stood out on offense as far as skill position wide receivers. I think tight end was definitely a thing of need. James O'Shaughnessy was just kind of there. They needed a lot of stuff on offense. We knew that, but it was more or less at the skill position. I thought that Jacksonville had one of the best. I personally feel like, I still feel this way, Jacksonville had a top 5 offensive line in NFL. You look at guys like Cam Robinson, who came from Alabama, is one of the better tackles. I think could be possibly one of the better tackles in the league. You had Andre Noel, you had Brandon Linder, you had AJ Cann, Jawan Taylor. Like, I love this offensive line. I think it's a really good, underrated offensive line, in my personal opinion. And that was just on the offensive side of the ball. And I know they had their woes on defense, and it was more or less in the secondary. They went from having one of the most consistent, dangerous secondaries in the league to practically nothing. You had rookie guys like CJ Henderson, who stepped up and showed some signs that he could possibly be something. Sidney Jones, I like Sidney Jones, but it just seems like at this point in his career, he's borderline injury prone, so I kind of get that. And then, the safeties, they were just kind of there. The linebacking core, once again, was one of those dangerous parts of this team that just it's not there anymore. And then the front four, I think guys like Josh Allen and Kayvon Chasen, who is also a young guy who just they really haven't found themselves yet. So it was just like they had some question marks along this defense at pretty much every level, and a lot of them. And so you can understand why this team struggled on the defense side of the ball, and I knew they would there. I just thought the offense would be good enough to carry them to a little bit more, to a couple more wins, and I was completely wrong. So that was just the 2020 roster. So we knew going into this offseason some areas of improvement that they really needed to focus on. So let's go over and take a look at some of their free agent acquisitions. So going into the 2021 NFL offseason, going 1-15, we knew the Jaguars had to make a lot of changes starting at the top. They signed Trent Baalke to a GM position, and then also bringing in Urban Meyer. I think those are two big signings just overall in the NFL offseason for the Jaguars. Those are guys that they needed to start changing the culture in Jacksonville. And I mean, the culture in Jacksonville, it was kind of seemed like it was going in the right direction, but then it seemed like it started to get kind of this bad rep almost with guys like Jalen Ramsey and Leonard Fournette. So it was like it was time to clean house. Tom Coughlin, everybody was gone. Doug Marrone was gone, and I feel like they gave Doug Marrone enough time to try to solidify himself as the head coach of the Jaguars, and it just didn't work out, unfortunately. And I still think Doug Marrone is a decent coach, probably not a head coach, but I think he's still a decent coach for sure. But bringing in a guy like Baalke and then bringing in Urban Meyer, I think those are two acquisitions right off the back that we have to pay attention to because it affects the whole entire offseason from that point on. And then scrolling down the list some more, looking at some other guys that they brought in. Guys like Philip Dorsett, and I don't think Dorsett is an offensive weapon. I think Philip Dorsett is purely just a guy that's going to be a special teams role guy, a gadget guy, just to add a little bit more dimension to this offense. LaVisca Chenault is that guy in a way, but I think Philip Dorsett has a different gear and a little bit more speed to his game. And I still like LaVisca Chenault, don't get me wrong. I think he's still a really, really good receiver. And then I think the first thing that stood out to me when I was going down the transaction list was bringing in Shaquille Griffin from Seattle. Now the thing is CJ Henderson showed that he could possibly play the number 1 spot. Bringing in Griffin now allows him to play the CB2 spot, and now you don't have to worry about your cornerback. You get back to having that decent corners like you did before in years past with Jalen Ramsey and AJ Bouye. I think now you get a guy like Griffin, and you got CJ Henderson on the other side, and now your cornerback's position looks a little bit more stable. And also bringing a guy re-signing Sidney Jones definitely, and now gives you more depth at the position. And even Sidney Jones can move down to the nickel spot, in my personal opinion, because I think Sidney Jones still has a little bit of speed to his game. Granted, he's injury prone, but when he's healthy, I think he could possibly be a decent corner for sure. And then I realized that I was doing some research, looking at some of the guys, some of the coaching staff that they brought in, and it made sense for a guy like Malcolm Brown to come in or Tyson Alualu and even Jair Ward, because from my understanding that they could possibly switch into a 3-4. So when you're switching to a 3-4, you want those defensive linemen to be a little bit more bulky, a little bit more beefy. You're not looking for them to get after the quarterback. Granted, if they do, hey, that's more cake for me, whatever the case may be. But really, it's just to clog up the alleys, clog up space, and let your linebackers run free and do what they do best. And they got Miles Jack back there. If you can keep Miles Jack clean, he's one of the better linebackers in the league for sure. Marvin Jones bringing in a big body receiver next to DJ Chark. Now your outside receiver position looks really, really good. And I think it's really, really solid at that point, because now it gives whoever our quarterback is. At this time, we don't know who our quarterback is, but let's just say we knew it was Trevor Lawrence because we had the number 1 overall pick. But it gives Trevor Lawrence those big body weapons on the outside, and we got Philip Dorsett in the slot, even with Laviska Shenault playing the other slot role as well. We got some weapon options right there for sure, and I think that's really, really big. Just looking at what we did through free agency, and then I think there was one other name that stood out to me that I was really. Josh Jones, that's who it was, the safety. Now, Josh Jones was the other guy that stood out to me when they signed him, was because I think Josh Jones, I didn't think he was that bad when he was in Green Bay. Just saying. But what it is, he's a box safety now. He's a guy that can play in the box, give you a little bit more protection in the box against the run and things of that nature. He's a guy that you're not looking for him to, completely cover line or tight ends, but what you're looking for him to do is just be a more effective run stopper back there. So now we knew going into the draft what we need to address more. Damian Wilson, he was a Chief, and he was decent. He was decent. He's just a really good speed linebacker. Add more speed to the linebacker position. And if you put him next to Miles Jack, that's going to be some really decent speed in the middle of that linebacker position. And so just their free agent acquisitions, they really address some of their needs, defense line being one of them. Now, what kind of threw me off is they didn't pick up Tevin Bryant's 5th-year option. I thought that would have been an option for them, but I think they were just going in another direction, and they wanted to try something new, I guess. I don't know. But I feel like that he could really fit into this new defensive scheme and where this defense was trending. But they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, which I found really odd. But overall, just through free agency, they addressed a lot of their needs, and I think that front 7 of that defense was probably one of the biggest needs on this team, if any. So we fast forward to the Jacksonville Jaguars draft. Trevor Lawrence going number 1 overall. Hands down, made sense. Don't need to get into details for that. They needed him. I think Trevor Lawrence was a good quarterback. I think, let's be honest, he's definitely better than Gardner Minshew, and I'm a big Minshew guy. I think Minshew is a decent quarterback, but Trevor Lawrence is by far a better quarterback than Minshew is, in my opinion. So that made sense. No need to get into details there. But the pick that kind of really curveballed me was Travis Etienne. I get it. You definitely want to try to give your quarterback some kind of safety blanket, somebody he can rely on, just another familiar weapon, if you will, at this point. I get that. I understand why you go to Travis Etienne, but I don't like it. I didn't think it was a good pick. I think you could have got more value, especially in the first round. But I don't know. They know what they're doing. They're professionals. But I just think that you could have got a little bit more value at that pick. You trade back, do something else with the pick. But hey, you want to get ETN, you want to give your quarterback as much comfortability as possible, if that's a word. But if you want to give him that comfort for sure. So I get why you get ETN, but I wasn't in love with the pick at all. But hey, it might work out for them. Who knows? And then we move on to the second round. We got we got Tyson Campbell coming out of Georgia at the cornerback position. Now, this pick makes amazing sense, in my opinion. We created more depth at the position. We know we signed back Sidney Jones for a year, so we only want to have Sidney Jones for a year. But if Sidney Jones gets banged up or hurt, then we have a guy in Campbell that we can come in and probably play that nickel role, and Griffin on the outside, Henderson on the other side. We have 3 viable corners, and if Jones is healthy, we only have 4 good corners. So whatever the case may be, we create depth and possibly take care of ourselves for next year as well. So getting Campbell, I think, was a steal. I think it was quality value for sure. I'm down with that 100%. Now, the next pick in Walker Little, once again, I'm all about value, and with Walker Little, I don't think they got a lot of value. The guy hadn't played since 2019. I think he was banged up and some other stuff, but he was pretty decent tackle for Stanford. So I think that I get why they get him, but I think that you could have got more value out of the pick. But with Cam Robinson only being, I think, there for 1 more year, you got to at least attempt to show up that left tackle position if Walker Little can possibly come in, or even if he plays the right tackle and you move Juwan Taylor to the left tackle position, whatever. If Walker Little can possibly be a starting tackle for you next year, then it kind of take care of that for the next 3 years at that tackle position. And so then that's why you're not spending a buku amount of money, a la the Chiefs, and you're not spending a lot of money trying to go get your tackle, or at least trying to scramble around and find a guy. Walk a little, I get it, but I just think you could get more value because there was a lot of tackles coming off the board in the 4th to 5th round that, I'm not saying they're better than Little, but that I think you could have just got more value. And then my favorite pick, literally my favorite pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars was Andre Cisco. This guy, I hate saying this, but I felt it in my bones, felt it in my football bones, if you will. Is this guy's Earl Thomas 2.0? He's a rangy safety. He literally knows how to find the ball, and that's just what he does best. He breathes and finds the ball. That's what he does. And so if this guy is at full health and the top of that secondary, the top of the key, if you will, and Josh Jones is in the box and your box safety with the corners that you have in position, this secondary, people are sleeping on this Jacksonville secondary if Cisco is at full health. If I'm not, I mean, granted, health does play a role, but if Cisco can play the way he did while he was at Syracuse, oh my God, this secondary would be scary. It would legitimately be scary. I'm not even talking about the front seven. I'm just talking about the DBs in general. They would be scary. This is a secondary that I don't think any team would want a part of, in my personal opinion. So with Cisco being there in the third round, quality value right there. That's what I like to see. And then we're going to scroll down. We're going to move to the fourth round. Getting Jay Tafili from USC makes sense. Defensive tackle. You need to shore up that defensive tackle position. I think he only brought a couple of D tackles in, or D linemen. He only brought a couple in for about a year or two maybe. So if this guy can possibly come in and be a defensive tackle starting position, or a DN starting position for you, then that's what you're looking for. Then you got another piece of the puzzle to keep this defense trending in the right direction for sure. Now the Jordan Smith pick, I get why you get a pass rusher. I'm not saying I don't have anything against Jordan Smith, but you know, my man Patrick Johnson was still on the board. Just saying, Patrick Johnson I think is a beast, but I don't know if you could do something better here. I don't know if the Travis Etienne pick was a edge rusher or a guy at that position, and then we come back around and with this fourth round pick we get a running back. I would have liked to probably see that switched up a little bit, but I get why they went edge rusher here. You got Josh Allen, you got Caleb Von Chasen. You're not quite sure what you got in those guys. You want to create competition. You want to put the best player out there that's going to get after the quarterback. That's going to give you the best chance to succeed. So I get that. In worst case scenario, all three of them are viable pass rushers. You put a NASCAR package out there, or Jordan Smith is just rotating in with everybody. You always got a consistent, fresh pass rusher in there. That's all that matters. So I get why they did it. I just don't know if they could have got a better pass rusher in the first round where they took Travis Etienne, and that's my biggest question mark about that. Like, I don't hate him, I'm not quite in love with it. And then we move down, and then in the fifth round we got Luke Farrell from Ohio State, the tight end. Makes sense. We knew the tight end position was definitely a big need here. And then if we're talking about draft wise, there wasn't a lot of tight ends that you were just like hopping on right away. I think it was a Penn State tight end maybe. But other than that, you know, I think when I watch Farrell, I think they got a really quality pick. I think they got a guy that they can possibly lean on, that can possibly develop into something. If him and Trevor Lawrence can develop some kind of chemistry, just another weapon. That's all it is. And then there's rumors about Tim Tebow, but we're not getting into the Tim Tebow thing. I'm just doing free agency and the draft picks. But you know, whatever. It's just having that tight end position. It was definitely going to be a big need going into this season for them. Getting a guy like Farrell, I think it was a great pick. It was a great value if he can pan out to be something special for them. And then Jalen Kemp was another one of my receivers that I was actually paying attention to, and I'm glad he went to Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. Is another weapon to have for Trevor Lawrence. And then also you think about if Jalen Kemp pans out to be something special, you don't have to worry about Marvin Jones quite a bit, and it just creates competition. Get more bodies at the position to create more competition, and that's why you're putting the best man out there for the position. And I think Jalen Kemp could possibly push some guys. He can really push some guys. Like, he can push DJ Chark to be better, and DJ Chark was kind of up and down last year as well. But you know, push Chark, push Marvin Jones, push Laviska Shenault, push Philip Dorsett, whatever the case may be, push these receivers and make sure you put the best guy out there. And I think D.D. Westbrook is still on the roster, but he possibly could be gone before the season kicks off. So I'm just saying, push some people for their position and just create competition at the position. I think that's really, really important. So when I overall look at the whole entire Jacksonville free agent acquisitions and coaching acquisitions and everything. So with everything the Jacksonville Jaguars did this offseason, with adding Lawrence, with adding Urban Meyer, with adding their GM, with some of their free agent acquisitions, this roster had a really good. I think it's like how on HGTV. If you guys ever watch HGTV, it's like when they find like a house and they were like, "Oh, it has really good bones." The Jacksonville Jaguars, in my personal opinion, had really good bones. They had some really good foundational pieces in place that whoever the new regime was coming in didn't have to do a lot of tweaking to it. But I think they still had a really great offseason. The biggest question mark this offseason that they had for me was Travis Etienne. Bringing him in or drafting him when they drafted him, just feel like you could have got more value out of the pick, and that was probably my hugest or my biggest question for them. But overall, looking at their whole entire offseason in its totality, like right at the draft, stopping at the draft is a B. I think they deserve a B. I think they got a lot better. I think they go from 1-15. I think they can go at least 500 with the current roster in place. Trevor Lawrence is going to go through some growing pains. The secondary is going to go through some growing pains. As great as it looks, it's going to go through some growing pains. But I think down the stretch, they're going to be a dangerous team. And they could possibly, with the 7 seed being a thing now, they could possibly be pushing for the 7 seed. And so it's like, it's really exciting to see where this Jacksonville team is going around. And I've always kind of silently root for the Jaguars because I just what I do. Well, they always been kind of like the butt of everybody jokes, or one of the teams that have been the butt of everybody jokes. So I like the way this team is trending. If Urban Meyer can get everybody on the same page, and if some of their young talent can develop into something special, this team could be one of those teams you just don't want to mess around with. And I think the South isn't that dangerous this year, so the South is pretty much for open for the taking as well. So it's like let's put some respect on the Jaguars offseason. I think it deserves a solid B, not quite an A because I feel like they could have did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but for the most part, I think a solid, strong B is what they deserve. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you're not a footballologist yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, become a footballologist today, and stay safe, football fans.